Specifically digestive, because I feel like we haven't touched too heavy on it.
Yeah.
And just need a review. But I mean, if we have time, urinary would be cool too, just because I feel like most of the tests would probably be urinary.
Okay, let me open the. Well, I really don't try and make most of the tests urinary. I divided it up. I probably could even post approximate ratios. I don't know what they are off the top of my head, but.
Oh, so you're saying it's almost like close to 50-50 maybe?
Well, we have reproductive too. So, and then we have urinary. Yeah, so it's probably, off the top of my head, there's probably 4 or 5 questions on the reproductive, urinary. I don't know how many, but yeah, so because maybe 4, it's probably not 5, because some of them are on the
study guide.
Yeah, I just went through the study guide and found models that are appropriate, or slide drawings, or histology.
That makes sense.
And I made questions just following along the whole study guide. So that's what I'd use as your guide. But let's go into the digestive one, since you're asking for those. Excuse me. Okay. They're kind of disorganized in my folder here. Let's start with, as opposed to the study guide, I guess we could start with the head. Let me rotate this. So key things about this, if you go through the study guide, are the lips, which are the labia again. These are going to help with ingestion, right? So, and then you have this area called the vestibule in front of the teeth. I'm not sure what part of digestion that would be, but it's...
Are you supposed to be sharing right now, Professor?
Or? Oh, sorry. Yep. I see it just fine. So, good thing it wasn't. Okay, so the labia, the lips, and again, part of ingestion process. The teeth would be part of ingestion and also mechanical digestion. And then this is the vestibule area. I'm not sure where you'd put that, maybe part of ingestion as well. And the palate, the hard palate where the bone is here, and the soft palate are going to be used for mechanical digestion. And then the tongue, which is this thing, is going to be for both mechanical digestion and surveying for taste. So this thing is the uvula, and the entire back of the soft palate here has a lot of sensory neurons that mechanically stimulate the swallowing reflex. But the uvula also, when you swallow, as you know, swings up and covers the nasopharynx. When you're doing the ingesting and surveying, the sense of smell up here on the superior concha would be important for that surveying process. And then you might remember there are the tonsils, the various tonsils here, and down here, which are important for your immune response, as usual, for generating it. I guess the epiglottis, I'm sitting out where the sun is, so somewhat bad contrast in this model. The epiglottis here, which is covering your trachea and your glottis, and then the esophagus. So I guess that model is about all I see on here that you would pay attention to. Is this what you're wanting?
Yeah, no, this is perfect.
Okay. All right, let me see let's do a tooth next. I'll turn this one around. So there's a list of things for the tooth that you need to study, but most of it's pretty, okay, anytime. Oh, there we go. All right, so here is the enamel, which is calcium phosphates, salts, and it's the hard surface for both ingestion and mechanical digestion. And underneath it is the dentine with these dentine tubules that are filled with interstitial fluid that's contiguous with the pulp down here. And the pulp has nerves, obviously, because they hurt a lot if you wear away your enamel. And capillary bed they're showing here for keeping these tissues alive. And I mentioned that the dentine tubules are helping maintain the enamel. Although you don't grow new enamel, you can deposit more calcium in the enamel you've gotten. So once you start losing enamel, you've lost it. But you can make it harder if you wish. The enamel goes down just below the gingiva here, the gum line, and then it becomes the same dentine tubules. So that's why when you have this part exposed or an infection in here, you can start feeling pain in the tooth from the interstitial fluid picking up bacteria. You can even get an infection in here and need a root canal. So here are the roots, and this joint is called a gomphosis. What holds the tooth in place are these ligaments here that are going across from the bone to the tooth. Called the periodontal ligaments, and that's what you are trying to preserve when you keep your gum line healthy, because if you lose these ligaments, then you lose the tooth. I think I hit everything. You guys maybe have the list, so just double check if there's anything in the study guide that is on the list that I haven't mentioned. Okay, let's stop sharing that one. Let's see if I find. I guess the stomach is probably the next one that there's a model of. So there's a bunch of versions of these stomachs. This version, let me share this screen, is from that oldest torso model. And the nice thing about it, which is unfortunate, I should have asked him again, I think I forgot, is that it actually shows the pancreas on the other side and the duodenum, and you only see it as like zoomed in when we have the picture of the pancreas. You can see the stomach on the other side of it, whereas in the newer model, which is also in your study guide, the stomach is totally separate. You don't see the relationship of those three organs. So here it's showing you the pyloric sphincter. This is actually what it looks like. It looks like there's a little pinched in area at the bottom of the stomach. And if you were to feel this in the cadaver, it'd feel really hard because there's such a strong amount of muscle there. And that's in default setting closed, preventing things from leaving the stomach into the duodenum. And the cardiac sphincter up here, which is a weaker sphincter, but it's also default is closed. So that defines kind of the cardiac region of the stomach where you secrete alkaline mucus. Primarily, the pits are there, but they're pretty shallow. They don't go way down. And pretty much all that's secreted is alkaline mucus. And then the body that you're drawing in the slides with all the cells, the chief cells, parietal cells, the gastric glands, all that stuff. And then finally, where it narrows down here, it's called the pyloric region. And once again, the gastric pits are a lot shallower. And what you have mostly are enteroendocrine cells like the G cells and the S cells making hormones, and not the parietal and chief cells. So where you see the whole complement of them would just be in the body. You see all types of them. Okay, so that's what I could ask about that one. If you open it up, and I have to find the one where it's been. Here's an open one. Now this is using the older version because that one wasn't open. Well, I'm sorry, the newer version of the cadaver of the torso models, where the stomach is totally separate. Here it is opened up, and you can see the cardiac or esophageal sphincter and the pyloric sphincter. And then the main thing you're seeing here are rugae, which are those folds, big, like wave-like folds in the surface of the stomach, which allows the stomach to expand quite a lot. And also, when it's starting to do mechanical digestion, they kind of come together and aid in that mechanical digestion. That's about all I could think of. Once again, you could do the cardiac region, the body, and the pyloric regions, but I can't think of what else I'd ask on that.
Just a quick question, Professor. By
Sure.
Cardiac region, do you mean the fundus, or is the fundus different?
The fundus is part of the cardiac region, but this model is really terrible at showing it. So if the esophagus were coming off up here, this part of the stomach would actually be a little above the sphincter. That's called the fundus, but this model does not show it. Let me see if I go back. The other one shows it a little bit better. Let me go back to that one, which I have to go into this folder. Not even they are very, now that I'm looking at it, neither of the models, the way they're set up, really show the fundus. So the cardiac region includes the fundus. The fundus is the part of the stomach that sits above the esophagus when you look at it in the actual cadaver. But these models, unfortunately, don't show it very well. Okay, so let's go. We have the entire small intestine here. And there's not a lot I can ask at this power, but at least you can see that they've made a couple windows here. This is, I think, meant to be the window into the duodenum, and this one into the ileum was certainly into the ileum. So the yellow is mesentery, and the only other picture I have of mesentery is with the large intestine, and you can see where the small intestine would have sat. You see a much better picture of the mesentery. So I guess I could say, sometimes I've asked questions like name the parts of the small intestine in order and give one function for each or something like that, with a picture like that. Okay, so let's take a look at a zeroing in of those windows. So this is that upper window, and I think, oops, I have to share the screen again. I keep talking about it. I'm really good at talking about it. Here's that window that was open in the duodenum area. And I think what they're trying to show here with these little ridges are the circular folds, or plica circularis. And then, as I said, I wasn't sure what they were trying to show. Maybe they're trying to show Brunner's glands as the white dots, but I don't know what the white dots, because the key was lost long before I got to Ohlone. So I'm not sure on that one. But that is the fact that you see these ridges probably means it's the duodenum. Okay. And let's see what other ones. Circular folds. Okay. Let's look into the other window. So now
Professor, I have a question.
Sure, yeah.
The folds are only found in the duodenum? The folds,
circular
the
folds.
folds,
As far as I know, they're only mentioned in the duodenum, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And then Payer's patches I'm fairly confident that's what that's supposed to represent in the ileum. again, in that same model. Do you see this? Did I remember to share the screen?
No, we don't see anything right now.
Yeah. I've got too many buttons I got to hit to get there. There's Payer's patch. And this is clearly the ileum here because of its position very close to where the ileocecal sphincter would be on the large intestine part of the same model. Okay, so let's go to the large intestine. So this is the same older cadaver model. I'm going to pick it first. So this is actually when it sits in there, when they sit together, the two that you're just seeing, that part that's the ileum connects up to this. So that's the very last part of the ileum. And then this is meant to be the ileocecal valve. This is the cecum. So as the chyme comes out of the ileum, it's regulated when this opening of this is due to gastrin and motilin and parasympathetic activation that's happening usually as you're eating. And it pushes, things are pushed along the pathway, and then they push up against this sphincter strong enough it will open and some will go in. But normally it's going to keep the microbes that are in here out. And the cecum, as far as I know, the main function is to help cultivate those microbes. There are crypts in this thing called the appendix, which is this kind of orangey, tanny thing down here under the ileum. So that's kind of why the position of the appendix as part of malt would be there, because the cecum is kind of a little cul-de-sac where, things can gather that just came out of the ileum, and microorganisms can work on it. Now, of course, they work on the entire thing, but by letting things gravity fall down into there, they probably spend a little more time in the large intestine. Okay, so this is a typical mucosal membrane, but the longitudinal layer is thicker here, thinned on each side of it, which helps form these pockets called Haustra, or house in German. And this thing that makes it is called the tinea coli. It's just an elaboration of the longitudinal muscle layer, the muscularis externi, and probably a fascia, the way the fascia is, the connective tissues are arranged. So you get these kind of bumps called haustra. What they don't show is that in the normal cadaver, even someone of totally normal weight, you'd see these little pockets of fat that hang off the large intestine. And again, I didn't have that on the list, but that's one way, if you were looking in the cadaver, you'd know for sure that was the large intestine. Here's the mesentery, and they're showing it as this big highway system for blood vessels and lymphatic vessels. There's lymphatic nodules embedded in here. There are ganglia embedded in here. So nerves are going through here. So it's not just structural. It acts to help suspend these guys, but it's a highway system. What's not so accurate is this guy is actually in the greater omentum, the transverse. It's embedded in the greater omentum as well. So, okay, let's stop. That guy's about all I got on that guy. Cecum labeled. I must have gone a little higher in the cecum one, right? Yeah, I think we went over everything in that one, though. Gallbladder. Maybe we should do pancreas first. Okay, so I'll share that one. So this comes from that same torso model. So you have that older stomach. He didn't take a lower power picture of this, or, so you could see the whole thing. But that's the back side of that stomach that's not been opened up. And this shows it the pancreas clinging to it, but in fact, between the stomach and the pancreas would be the parietal layer of the peritoneum, because this structure and this structure is retroperitoneal at that point. This is the duodenum. So here are the little lobules of the pancreas, and the ductal cells eventually coalescing into a main duct. And that main duct leads into, I have to move you guys, leads into the sphincter of Oddi, or the hepatopancreatic sphincter here. And you know that's there because here's the common bile duct coming out in. And so that ampulla, although I don't ask about it because you don't really see anything in these models equivalent to it. And then sort of a backup plan, because you really need your pancreas, there is an accessory duct. And there probably is a sphincter on that, but I don't know of it per se. So here's the duodenum. You can see it's really the sphincter is coming in right at the beginning of the duodenum. This little bump here, I wouldn't ask about it, but that's right where you saw that pinched in area of the pyloric sphincter. So that's that model. Let's see what other ones I have. Okay. Mm-hmm. Gallbladder and ducts. Okay, so let me share that one. Oops, I didn't pick it. I guess I'm not going to. Maybe you will have it, but I'll just make sure you got the right thing. Get that one and that one. Okay, so this is the older, again, from that older torso model, which seems to have more detail than a lot of the newer models we get. So what it's showing you here is this falciform ligament between the lobes of the liver that helps suspend it from superiorly from the fascia of the diaphragm, and along the backside, on the posterior side from the parietal serosa. And it looks like this is literally attached, like leading into it, but this is the portal vein. So that's bringing blood from the digestive tract and the spleen into the liver. That's the portal artery. It's called hepatic artery, rather. And that's the inferior vena cava. So right here is the left or right hepatic, I wouldn't ask which, duct. That's the other one. And then they fuse right here to form the common hepatic duct, which then fuses here, and there's just a little stub of it, which would be the common bile duct. This between here and here, where you only have bile going in or out of the gallbladder, is called the cystic duct, and the gallbladder, of course. So this part, and if the model was all put together, would connect up to that green part on the pancreas, with the duodenum still attached. So that would be the rest of the common bile duct that was on that model. Okay, so I'm sharing that one. And I might be, if there's any you guys know of, then the liver, the dorsal surface of the liver, I guess, or superior surface. So this is one of the newer models, but they look quite similar, the older and the newer one. And again, this is inferior vena cava and the dome of the superior surface of the liver, but there's not much else I could ask, since I told you I won't ask left and right or anything on this. So, and I don't think I put this picture in. Maybe I should have. Did I put this one? Let me share it so you know what you're seeing. You're probably not, I'm not seeing anything. I don't think this is a new model that Kevin bought. I didn't put that one in, did I? Does this look familiar to you guys?
No.
No, it's not in the study guide, but it's in like the slides for just you posted it online on Canvas.
Oh, I posted this one?
Yeah, you did.
Okay. Well, you can hopefully figure this out if you looked at the others. It's nice in that it's got the right and left hepatic ducts, and then the common duct is quite a bit bigger, the cystic, the gallbladder, and then these purple things are meant to be or lavender color, hepatic portal vein with its deoxygenated blood. This is the vena cava, and then the hepatic artery breaking off. So I mean, I'm not sure why he bought it. It's nice enough. It doesn't really show anything more than we got from the others. But anyway, so I probably just decided not to put it in since I haven't used it very many times. Is there anything I've forgotten? I think I have everything. So is that what you guys need a review on?
Yeah, I think that's all the digestive. I'd have to ask the other two if they wanted urinary still.
Well, I'm not going anywhere, so you can come back and talk with each other. Okay. All right, just give me a shout.
Professor, it's Jasmine.
Uh-huh.
Can you go over the it's in the reproductive slide. I think it's in the urinary folder, the lateral view of the male and female.
Okay. Let me turn this. Okay, where's my turning thing? There it is. Okay. Is this what you're talking about? Or was it the relief model one?
This one.
This one. Okay. So and this is another one that he just bought that's fairly new. Yeah, I think this is the outer side of it. You see more on the other side. I think I have a picture where it's flipped over. But here's the bladder and the prostate. This is the pubic bone here. And you can see the testes, the epididymis. And this is the splenic cords, which the blood vessels are kind of referred to. And the scrotum. You can't tell there's muscle there, but you should probably know there's some muscle in there. And then you can't really, you can see the head of the penis and the rest of it, but you can't see the internal structures or the glands. So let me go find one where you see those. Might have been the relief models in that case. No, this is actually the rest of the same model, I think. It's just looking at the inside of it. Let me make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so again, the bladder, the prostate, and here the urethra. This is often called the prosthetic urethra, but I don't care if you just call it urethra. That's fine by me. This little duct is going off to the seminiferous tubules, which I probably missed pointing out on the last one. All you're seeing is a little bit of a shadow of one right here. It's just like a little bump that's on the back of the bladder, on the underside of the bladder, where it's quite large, actually. And there are two of them. And then this goes through the penile urethra. On this model, which again is kind of new to me as well, I'm going to blow it up. Oops, I can't do it if I do that. Let me grab it. Oops, there, now I can. I'm not sure what they are indicating as the bulbourethral. I think I have another version of the model that shows it much clearer, but there ought to be right around here, maybe this white thing, but I would thought that was bone, is the bulbourethral gland. So there are 3 glands, the seminal vesicle, the prostate, and the bulbourethral. It might be they're not here because this is a true mid-sagittal section, and there's one on each side, so they might be missing that. So the erectile tissue is the corpora cavernosum here with the lines, think of caves. And then what's going on each side of the urethra here is the corpora spongiosum. And you can see that it goes down and forms part of the head of the penis. So both of these are filled with venous sinuses where the blood pools. But you want this one as a sort of circular tube around the urethra to keep that urethra open as this one expands. So you don't want this to push down and collapse the urethra. So you have the second one, the spongiosum. So let me close this and see if I can find the one that shows all the glands. Maybe I didn't put it in here. I thought I did, though. Maybe it's in the study guide and not in my folder. All right, well, let's look at the female before I leave this. And then I know I have this newer one from maybe only in the study guide, but you can tell me if I'm crazy and then. Okay. So for the female, once again, the bladder, you can kind of recognize the bladder always because you're going to see these bumps, which are the rugae, and the urethra. So the opening of the urethra here is very close to the opening of the vagina here. This is erectile tissue. I'm not sure why they didn't make it the same color as in the male. That's the clitoris. This is the labia minor and the labia major. That means lips that just kind of cover these openings. And the anus here. And then this is the vagina, the cervix, and the uterus. So you can see that in both the male and the female, the part that faces the abdominal contents of the bladder is serosa. And this was just called the
epimetrium.
Metrium. Yeah, I get so stuck on the skeletal muscle layers that they come to mind first. Yeah, that's also serosa. So it's the same tissue-wise as what lines here. But then once each of these organs become embedded in the pelvic wall, you've got adventitia. This is the uterine tube, or sometimes called fallopian tubes, and the fimbriae, and I think that yellow is the ovary. And then this is probably the round ligament there. You can't tell the broad ligament from this view of it. So that would be the parts that I see in this one. Close that. Maybe they're in the study guide because I remember showing you guys the other view. Let's see what's in my. Yeah, there isn't anything new on that. That's the same thing. Let me go back. Reproductive. Look in the study guide. I guess in the study guide, I put some of these models. No, we did those too. Oh, I know why, because in the study guide, it's pictures. So I must not have had the older models where you can see it. Everything I showed was pictures. So just because I was struggling with that, I'll share this, although I know you have it.
Are you talking about the bulb or urethra gland in the male?
Yeah, the glands, all of the glands. I think in the model pictures, they don't
Yeah.
show up.
It says you put a note here saying that it will not appear in mid-sagittal
Right.
view.
Yeah, so here they are in the pictures. I just remember going over them, and there's the large seminal vesicles, which there's one on each side as well. You only have a single prostate, but you have, sets of seminal vesicles on each side and sets of bulbourethra on each side. So I think they were being almost too realistic because they left those things off of the other model. But our old model, some of our older models and relief models, they do show them, just not the newest one that he just purchased. So is that what you needed, Jasmine?
Yes, one more though. Can we look at the male bladder with the prostate? I see the seminal vesicle, but I'm not too sure what everything else is.
In the actual picture?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, the actual model.
Yeah.
I had it.
I don't think it's in that slide. I think it's in your folder.
Oh,
the urinary folder.
Not this one that I'm showing you now?
Yeah, no, it's in your urinary folder and the reproductive folder.
Oh, okay. All right, let me close that out and find that in the, maybe I should look at it into your folders. That might have made some more sense.
Yeah, it's the one that looks like an acorn.
Dissected sheep kidney, parental kidney on a stand, blaster, nephron, reproductive with urinary. I see. That's where they got hidden away. Yeah, these are from that relief model of the pelvic area. Yes, and they do show that much better. You're right. So they don't show the bulbourethral, but they do show the seminal vesicles very well. So these are the ureters coming down into the bladder, which is here. This is the prostate with the urethra would connect there. And these two are the seminal vesicles, one on each side. So you should know what's made by each, what the function of each of these glands are. So it looks like, what was the other one in that folder? Is that a female? No, that's also a male. Yeah, that's just showing you that same in place, that same thing in place. I think that's it. The really old one that shows the bulbourethral, I must not have had him take a picture of. So, okay, is there anything else?
That's it for me. Thank you.
Okay.
Can you go over the frontal kidney?
The frontal kidney. Okay, let me open that one. See, digestive urinary models. Frontal kidney. Is this the one that you are talking about? This one?
Yeah, it's this one.
Yeah. So, so here's the ureter coming in. As soon as you're actually within the kidney itself, that's the pelvis, and the pelvis joint becomes, it's kind of roads changing names, but being the same thing, becomes the major calyces where these branches come off. And then each branch is the minor calyce. They're collecting urine from the pyramids here. I think these are called papillae, where all the collecting ducts, and they're drawing them kind of light in color because it's just like pure collecting ducts, practically, when it's at the bottom here. And the pyramids make up the medulla as well as the columns. So the larger categories, the medulla, and under that, there's areas that are pyramids and areas that are columns. The columns have the large interlobular blood vessels, nerves run through this area. So these are kind of a highway passageway for nerves and blood vessels. So if we follow those blood vessels, here's the renal artery, renal vein. The renal artery splits into these segmental arteries that then go between the pyramids, called the interlobular. The vein as well as an interlobular. They make the arcuate artery and vein, and then coming off towards the edge of the cortex are the cortical radiant arteries and veins. From the cortical radiant artery, you get the afferent arterial, and then the vasa recta, or the end of the peritubular capillary, drain into the efferent. Drain into the cortical radiant vein. So this particular model they're trying to show here is a juxtamedullary nephron, and you know that because it's going all the way down deep into the medulla. I don't think they're showing a cortical radiant. The little white dots are meant to be lots and lots of glomeruli up there in the cortex. Is there anything else? I don't have the list in front of me that you might need to know from that.
Can you go over the glomerulus and macula densa relief model?
Okay, and then somebody else was saying something too.
Hi, Professor. It's Sana. Is there a difference between the interlobular versus interlobar? Like the ones between the pyramids, would that be interlobar or interlobular?
You're lucky.
Okay.
These are interlobular.
Okay.
And what we used to be, the cortical radiant used to be called the interlobar.
Oh, okay, got it.
But now they made it easier. They don't make, that was a terrible confusion, because they're so close in words. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So let's go to the relief model. Let's try and have fun. No, do you want the plaster one or the one that's?
It's the one that's open, the glomerulus with the.
This guy. Let's see if this is the one you're talking about.
Yeah, that one.
Okay. So here is the afferent arterial coming in. You know it, one, because it's a wide diameter, but two, it's got these granular cells on the outside of it. So, so that's the afferent arterial feeding in. And then on this left side of the model, they left the podocytes on, but on the right side, it's like they peeled the podocytes off. And they did that so you can see the little dimple-like impressions because these are fenestrated capillaries. The podocytes sit on those fenestrated capillaries and make these filtration slits. This is the renal capsule. All the time, this is very common, but people get confused between what is the tubule and what are the blood supply. So be clear that the podocytes, the capsular space, excuse me, and the parietal layer, those are all part of the renal tubular cells, whereas the capillary endothelia, the afferent arterial, the efferent arterial, the peritubular capillary, the vasa recta, those are all part of the blood vessels. They're separate things. So they have a relationship, clearly, especially right here. But I'm saying that because, a lot of it is people are just giving me a knee-jerk answer. But I asked about the difference between the capillary beds of cortical and a juxtamedullary nephron. And what I'm talking about would be similarities. They'd have similar glomerular capillaries. They'd be identical and it's what happens to the second capillary bed. And not worrying about, loops of Henle. Those are all tubules. Tubular, that's part of the kidney, not the circulatory system. So PCT is over here, and we kind of know that because they made it look like there are a microvilli on the surface of the cells. Again, parietal layer with all their tight junctions. And then this is, some books call it the end of the ascending, thick segment of the ascending. And our book tends to call this the beginning of the DCT, with these taller cells being the macula densa. So missing from this that would sit right here are the extraglomerular mesangial, also missing that would be patrolling around these filtration slits would be the glomerular or mesangial cells. So they don't have those on this model. Any other requests? Sure. Okay, slides. Gotta go back out here. Oops. Go back. Digestive slides. Esophagus. Okay, share this one. So I don't have anyone but myself to blame for this slide. I took it kind of with a big shadow down here and a little bit off from where it should have been. I mean, everything should have been shoved over to the right so you can see a little more of this opening. But this is where the food would be passing, and this is stratified squamous epithelia of the mucosal lining. Therefore, because it's stratified, you don't have lamina propria in between these folds in any way, and the lamina propria is only found right underneath, and it's so mixed up with the submucosa here that I wouldn't expect you to point at it. I mean, you would know that it would be right underneath the stratified squamous, but there'd be hard pressed to point at anything. I think this white is just the slide tearing between it and the muscularis externae. And once again, I wouldn't expect you to point at circular versus longitudinal, although you might be able to tell, but at least know that it's circular and then longitudinal. And then the outermost part here is the adventitia. So only at the very, very tail end, and we don't have a picture of it, is it simple columnar. It's all stratified, and it's mostly adventitia in all of our slides. You could tell that because it's sort of substantial, whereas you couldn't really point at much of anything for the serosa. Okay, that's that one. And then you wanted the stomach, right? Higher power or lower power, Stephanie, or both of them? Okay. All right, I'm going to make this one a little bigger before I share it. Because it's far away. So these are the muscularis mucosa, and as I said, this slide you can actually kind of see a dark pink, which is probably the serosa. The layers of the serosa that surround the stomach, the visceral serosa. And then you can tell these are multiple layers, but I wouldn't expect you to tell which one is the oblique, circular, longitudinal, although they go in that order, with the oblique closest to the where the lumen is, and the longitudinal closest to the serosa on the outside. So you would be really hard pressed to point at submucosa on this slide. This is one of the ones that people struggled with. It's there. It's probably in this pink stuff, but it is so little. That's probably a blood vessel or something that's in it. I'd have to go higher power to see. So this is almost all muscle. layer until you get to here where you're seeing these sort of cracks. Those are mucosal layers. You'd also have to be hard pressed on this power, and we could try and make it a little bit bigger to point at. See, here's probably a blood vessel. This might be a blood vessel or something too. That's probably in submucosa. That's kind of this pink. It's down here. But all of this here, those are all epithelial cells of the mucosal lining. And if you had to say lamina propria, then you'd probably be looking at things that don't look like cells in between, further up, like these pink areas would be lamina propria. I would just know. Now, what about the muscularis mucosa? Again, hard pressed to point at it here. It might be right there. As I said, this seems like all muscle when you look at it all the way to there. So hard pressed to point at it. So I would just know it's there. You do need it because it's going to help push those secretions out into the lumen, making those local churning movements. So it is there. It's just you'd have a hard press to point at it at that magnification. Let me go to the higher power picture. And share the screen. So all you have on this picture is mucosa, and you're fairly far up in the mucosa because you can see this is where the food would be, and this is the surface entering into some of these pits. But none of the pits can you trace very far down because just to the angle the knife went through. But you can see that these guys look a little more columnar up here. So this is the surface epithelia. As you get a little further down in here, say, they don't look quite as columnar-y, a little fatter and shorter. Those are the mucous neck cells. And you know them also because they're right next to these big round ones. The big round ones, which you see for quite a ways down, these are all parietal cells. And then if we follow the same one down, they start looking a little more cuboidal in here. So these in here are probably chief cells. And it's not like there's an absolute line. Plus, we're not following one pit. It's all kind of a jumble because of the angle of section. These might be a parietal cell. And if you get way down, maybe even off the screen, you would have the enteroendocrine and the stem cells. But that's about the best you could do with this slide, knowing them in order. But I think I can see like somewhere around here, all of these look like parietal cells. These start looking different. They're probably the chief cells. And I'm going to doubt that there's enteroendocrine. They probably have to be quite a bit deeper. Can you see lamina propria here? Well, a little bit. In between these cells, there's purpley stuff. Every now and then you get a peak of it, but not a huge amount of it. Okay, is that what you're looking for?
Professor, does lamina propria has a cell?
No, it does, but nothing you can see in that slide. They're very tiny compared to the parietal cells and such, because they're mostly the endothelia, the blood vessels, and the capillary, and there may be some fibrocytes because they're connective tissue.
Okay. And is the S cell and stem cell both same or the difference? S and stem
S cells make histamine and stem cells make other cells.
Okay, yeah, mitotic, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
Can we take a look at, I don't know if you guys already did this, the slide of the duodenum?
No, they didn't do it.
Okay. I just want to make sure I have
high or low power.
I guess we can start with the low power. I want to make sure I can see the difference between the intestinal glands versus the duodenal glands.
Oh, the crypts? Duodenal crypts versus gland?
Right, yeah.
Okay, let me see if I can get it to make it bigger. Okay, I know it's getting blurrier as I'm blowing it up, but at least there's some way. Okay, so the duodenal glands are down here in the submucosa. Everything that is pink, dark purple to or purpley to all the way up to here, that's all mucosa. Lots of people made this mistake. They were calling this the submucosa. Whereas these are the big villi going all the way down here, and it gets pretty tight down in here, but those are the crypts. These little gaps down in here, those are the crypts. And then you have the muscularis mucosas right here. It just looks brighter pink than the submucosa itself, which is over there. And the duodenal glands are in the submucosa. These are large blood vessels in the submucosa. And this is probably fascia that holds the muscle layers to the blood vessels and the rest of the submucosa. So duodenal gland, these are probably blood vessels. So if I could blow it up enough, or you could look at it in the light, which we do by going to the 400, you would see these are simple cuboidal. Whereas over here, they're it's a little hard to tell they're columnar, but they are columnar over here. Is that helping, Sana?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so 2 layers of the muscle. Again, can't tell where the circular, just to know the order again. So if we close this, which means I got to drag you guys back over here and open the higher power. Oops, I think I didn't get it. Okay. So stop sharing that. Now hit share again. And this. So this is where your question kind of really maybe where you struggled. Now, maybe I don't want to do that. Okay. So these are the duodenal glands, or the Brunner's glands. They're simple cuboidal. They look kind of like sweat glands to me, maybe because I say that because that's the first gland you guys drew. And they're in this really light layer, which is the submucosa. Now, here, unfortunately, the pink isn't very evident that you could see on the other slide. But I hope you can see there's kind of a texture here where there's lines that are going parallel. That's the muscularis mucosa. I can see it. It sort of ends where these nuclei suddenly start showing up. A little hard to tell where it ends here, but at least goes down to this level and then comes up here and over here. I can see the kind of the border of the muscularis mucosa. So it's almost a texture you're looking for rather than a color, unfortunately, in this picture that I must not have picked an area where it was very darkly stained. And then these guys are columnar. I know they don't look very tall, but you can see all their nuclei are all in a little row at the bottom of the cell. That's so typical of columnar epithelia, that the nuclei are always at the basolateral side of the membrane, not the apical sides. And these are the crypts. These are the deepest part where you're going to have all the enteroendocrine, the stem cells, the Paneth cells, and the EIL cells that are in the duodenum. And then if you wanted to point in between where they're clearly not columnar, in here or like over here, that's lamina propria, which is pretty elaborated in these lacteals, where the lacteals would be found. Is this good enough, Sana?
Yes, that's helpful. Thank you.
Okay, other requests? Is it 2? He's really asleep. You can't wake him up with a hot dog. You may put it right in front of his nose and see what happens.
I actually have a gee whiz question for physiological stuff. I always hear IBS as a common thing for people with like stomach issues. Is
IBS.
irritable bowel syndrome.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Do we? From my understanding, we don't really know what causes that, right?
No, I don't think they do know what causes that, but I haven't looked it up. Yeah.
Okay.
So
I was just curious. I also was curious if you knew anything about tuberculosis.
tuberculosis.
Not tuberculosis, diverculosis. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Diverticulitis.
Diverticulitis.
Well, there's the itis and there's osis as well, from my understanding. Because the itis is inflammation.
Yeah, well, maybe the osis leads to itis. I don't know enough about it, but my stepmom had it, and I know it's little pockets that occur, like weakenings in the mesentery that allow little pockets to appear in your small intestine, and so things that, especially if they're fibrous, tend to get stuck in these pockets and cause irritation. But that's about all I know about it. Yeah, you can.
So it's actually like the weakening of the mesentery that causes that. I thought it was like something.
Kind of my understanding, but I don't know for sure. That I just knew about it because she kind of had it and couldn't eat things like celery and anything that had a lot of fibrous nature to it.
Oh, interesting. Okay, cool. I only ask because my girlfriend has it. And she talks about it all the time, so I was just curious.
Well, there you go. That's what Google's for. Huh?
That's true. Very true.
Okay, you guys good?
I had a question. I was wondering if we had to tell the difference between like PCT and DCT.
No. I think it says that in the study guide somewhere. Anything else? What time is it?
Professor, I have a general question. Some people drink hot water after the meal. So today, when I learned the enzyme after boiling in the hot water, they get denatured, and then it weakens its reaction to the substrate or to the substance, whatever it is, or to the food. So drinking hot water, is it not good?
Oh, I don't think you could drink water that was boiling.
Hot
it would
water.
hurt your mouth too much.
Yeah, not
probably by the time it got to your intestine, it would be 37 degrees, whatever it is you drank, because you're not going to be drinking it hot enough, and then it's going to be in your stomach and mixed with the colder food in your stomach and the secretions in your stomach, so it'll cool it down. And by the time it gets to your enzymes in your small intestine, it's going to be normal body temperature.
Oh, okay. So it does not make any difference to the body function.
She says that she drinks her tea.
Okay. Again, just curious, like after learning that enzyme, boiling in the hot water is not functioning so efficient. I was like, okay, let me ask that question.
No, I don't think you have to worry about that.
Okay, perfect. Good.
I had a question about digestive function. I feel like it makes a big deal in the book about well, not a big deal, but it is mentioned that the chyme is also hypertonic. I was sort of confused what it meant by that. Is that just meaning that it has a bunch of solutes, or?
Yeah, that's all they mean.
Okay.
There are osmoreceptors that I didn't really talk about. But so when you have a lot of food mixed with your salivary secretions, everything you're swallowing is a bit hypertonic. So they're stretched, but there's also an osmotic. I don't think that it's drawing necessarily water out of your cells, although I suppose it could, but I think it's just more to trigger those osmoreceptors that you have consumed something. So if you drank distilled water, what would happen? I don't know.
But we don't really talk about the osmoreceptors, right? We mainly
really bring them up. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just making sure.
I think they're kind of like the stretch receptors, and that we bring them up, but we don't, or they're in there, but the book doesn't go into them too much in the details, except for maybe the vagovagal, the stretch. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, Professor, vago, is that you mean the regular nerve system? It's a
What I
regular
mean is
nerve
the
system, right?
sensory from the stretch receptors
Right,
in your
okay.
stomach are sent towards your central nervous system by the vagus nerve, and
Yeah.
then sending inputs from the parasympathetic that cause, the release of
Yes, yes, yes.
acetylcholine also descend through the vagal nerve. So that's why they call it vagal reflex,
Okay.
because when you excite your stretch, it causes more acetylcholine release.
Okay. So it relates to vagus nerve. The vagal name sounds funny. So like, okay. Yeah.
Sounds funny, yeah.
Vagal. Okay.
If nobody else had a question, I was wondering if we could go over the medulla slides and just recognizing the
Kidney medulla.
yes, it's all the Christmas colors in them.
Oops. Okay, this is the one I just randomly picked one of the two. That is not the world's best focus. Let me see if I can get something that's a better pointer since it's kind of small. Oops, I think this ends up being a better pointer. So this is a lumen where you see almost nothing in it, but you see that it has this dark, very, very thin cells that are lining it, making this side look really, really black. This is a thin descending loop. My guess is this is a collecting duct. The cells look kind of squarish, and maybe they look really clean edged because they have some thin loops of Henle next to them, but this is probably another thin loop of Henle here. But these guys that are kind of blurry looking and brighter red, that's the thick segment of the ascending loop of Henle. So that bright red fuzzy thing is the ascending loop. This is the descending loop. And these are collecting ducts. This one looks really nicely, kind of cuboidal. You can even see the edges in between cells. So vasa recta is not really shown here that I see. This looks pretty empty. There's probably another thin with just trash in it. I don't see any vasa recta on this one. Let me go away. And there's another medulla. Bladder, medulla. Here it is. Share the screen. Select the slide. Okay, so this one's turned a bit sideways, but let me get something again better to point with. Where's my draw? Okay. So again, this is kind of empty here. I know this one's probably not the best one to pick. Maybe we'll pick one over here. See how this one's empty, and there's definitely a flat, darkly stained cell on each side. So that's probably a descending loop. This is got stuff in it that look like, I don't know, bricks or tiles or something on your floor. Those are red blood cells. So that's a vasa recta. This guy's got bright red, kind of fuzzy looking, messy looking cells on each side. So that's a thick segment of the ascending loop limb. And I didn't know if I could really see any collecting duct in this view. This would be another descending limb. Possibly that, but I'd probably use the other slide for the collecting ducts because there are more of them. All right.
Thank you. Sorry.
That's okay. It's
Not
exciting.
school time anymore, so they get to play.
Okay, so more requests?
Professor, can you go over to can you quickly review the female reproductive system, please?
Models?
I have no issue you doing any which one. Any of the concern. Like you can go to the model.
We kind of, let's see.
It's in the slide number 1.
So this is
number
the
1, 2.
model.
Yeah.
So you have the uterus here and the cervix, which is just a portion of the uterus. And then the vagina, stratified squamous. Here's the endothelia, the endometrium, and myometrium, and epimetrium is more visible than when we were looking before. And here where it's facing the abdomen, it's just the same tissue as the parietal serosa. It sits on top of the bladder here. And you can always tell the bladder because of the wavy lining of the transitional epithelia that you find in there with the rugae. So these are rugae. And then the urethra, which is again stratified squamous. And then this is the rectile tissue of the clitoris. And the two openings here are protected by the labia minor. They don't have the labia major on this one. And then, of course, this is the rectum. Okay?
Okay, so the major cells are just the stratified squamous, right? Stratified squamous.
Yeah, if they're either of the openings, this is stratified squamous, this is stratified squamous, this is stratified squamous, and this is stratified squamous. Anything that's kind of opening.
Yeah, except on the bladder, right? The bladder.
No, the bladder inside is transitional epithelium.
Transitional.
Right, like the ureter, that's transitional.
Yeah. Okay.
So the other parts of the female, and you can see a bit of them here. Let me get the screen share that you couldn't see in that one. So you can see it's just this other half of the same model. So all of this is the same. But here you can see the fallopian tube, the ovary, which is yellow, the fimbriae at the end of the fallopian tubes, and the round ligament. So that's the only new things I guess we could add from the other half of this model.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good, thank you. Yes. For the, what is that called? For the trite, there is a central vein, right? The center part is the central vein. There is
The what? What was the structure here?
1 second. Let me get the correct term for that. It's in the liver. The center part is the central vein, right? Central vein. Yeah, that's the right term. Central vein.
Oh, yeah. You mean, yes, in the middle of the lobule? Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that central vein, is that the portal vein as well?
No.
The portal vein is inside that one?
The portal vein feeds into the sinusoidal capillaries. Those capillaries feed into the central vein. Remember, this is a
Oh,
portal system. So the second capillary bed are the sinusoidal capillaries of the lobule.
so the whole middle part is the central vein, right?
A hole in the middle, yeah, of those slow
Yeah.
slots.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm. And the hepatocytes are all around the liver, including that central vein. The hepatocyte.
Yeah, all the
hepatocyte, yeah,
pink
okay.
cells that make up the lobule that aren't bright blue, those
Yeah.
are hepatocytes.
Oh, you mean they sit only on the lobule, the blue
They
color
make up the
stain?
lobule. Let's skip the slide. They make up the lobules. Let me see. Go back. I closed the folder. Digestive slides. This is really low power. Maybe I should go to the
400X has a good vision.
So
Oh,
this
you can pick
is,
400X.
these are the hepatocytes. Everything that's pink out here. And then the cracks are probably the sinusoidal capillaries, but they might
Yes.
they might be ducts. We don't. It's hard to
Ducts as well. Yeah.
So this isn't showing the central vein because it would be on the other side of all this capillary bed.
Isn't this one central vein? I thought this one,
That's the portal. That's the
pyramid shape kind of.
That's the portal. If you want to see the central, it's going to be not have the other structures near it. So
yeah, it's in a 40X. Yeah.
I think I have two of them, but I had another one at higher power where.
Okay.
Yeah, well, you can see it in that one, but it's pretty low power.
Yeah.
So that's the central, and the portal that we were at looking at higher power would be out here. So the blood would flow in the portal and then go through the sinusoidal capillaries and drain out the central.
Okay, so hepatocytes sits on these lobules. Okay, the blue color.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And can we see macrophage on this 40X? The dark red.
Oh, it's a different slide. It has to have that treatment where they fed the animal. Carbon particles. Oops, share screen. So once again, this is a different slide. That's the center. Those are all hepatocytes that are pink, and then the black are all these fixed macrophages.
Okay. So in pancreas, you asked about know the cells. So endocrine, we have only one cell, right? Which is endocrine cell.
Two. Alpha and beta.
Oh, sorry. Oh my God, I forgot. Endocrine has alpha and beta, and then exocrine has two, acinar and the ductal.
That's right. That's all you need to know. There are more, but you don't need to know them.
But ductal cell we cannot see in the slide.
Right, only in the study guide. There's a picture that I thought I downloaded from the lab manual, but I must have gotten it from somewhere else.
Okay.
Or maybe the textbook.
Wait, sorry, can you go over the portal triad again? I didn't catch that one. The portal vein and the portal artery, the hepatic artery.
Share. So this is the pointer is pointing at the portal vein.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can see these are, maybe I'll make them even bigger. You can see these are cuboidal cells, or even columnar they look, but they're cuboidal.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the bile ducts. And you see this has sort of a ring of lavender around it. That's smooth muscle. And the nuclei that line the interior are all kind of crowded together. This is an arteriole. So the venule is much larger and tends to be not circular. Arterioles are always circular. Ducts are more or less circular. And this has blood in it, so that's why you don't see it look hollow.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Professor.
Okay, anything else, you guys? All right, why don't you give me a call? We have about time is it? About 15 minutes left on the lab, and then I have office hours starting at 2:40, so you can come in, but you have to go in through the other shell. Okay?
Are you excited for this class just to end as much as we are, or?
I guess I said that into the wall since I hit mute. Yeah, I have a lot of grading to do. So.
Yeah, I'd imagine. I'm sure this whole process was pretty rough for the first time running it through, huh?
This is so much better than last spring. Ugh.
Was it really? Oh, man.
Really?
I mean, it still has its bumps, but last spring was, we went from, being in person to everything that I'd put together wasn't for being in person. I was scrambling to try and come up with something to do in lab, and especially in B, because, there's a lot of activity stuff to do in B. But yeah, oh well, it is what it is. Here we are. I'd kind of be
Next semester will be much easier for you.
Each one will probably get easier because of
you get
I
experience.
made in the previous one. That I hope I remember to correct.
Do you prefer it this way, or would you rather go back to in person?
No, I prefer it in person. It's yeah.
It's probably easier to teach the material too.
I just am happy I don't commute anymore.
That's true. It's very true.
It's a sunny side of something. So, yeah.
So next semester looks like virtual again.
Yeah,
Not sure.
it's already decided. It's all virtual.
Mm.
It's not going to change.
But Professor Waxman is coming, right? I mean, I think so. Vaccine, right? That's the right term, right? Vaccine? How do I say it? Vaccination? How do I say it?
Vaccine?
Oh, the vaccine is coming.
Yeah.
But you won't see it until maybe next summer. Even if it all goes as there are no more bumps in the road, of manufacturing, which they've already had one where they don't have enough materials. So they can't make, I think it's Pfizer, can't make what they'd promised. So without any more bumps in the road, anyone that is young and healthy like you guys, you're not going to be the top of the list to getting it. In some ways, the logic to that isn't, I understand they're trying to protect people who potentially would die from it more, but since you guys, young people, are the super spreaders, maybe not you personally, but they tend to be the ones that are, getting together in groups and causing super spreader events. But anyway, it is what it is. So.
They actually might make it mandatory for nursing students to get it before they enter the program. At least that's what the nursing coordinator was saying for SJSU.
Yeah, so you guys might get it because you have to, even right now, they're doing labs in person because there's so many skills that you have to pass for the boards. You can't teach skills very easily. And so they are this semester, they're having labs. But I think they're very modified. They're probably focused on they're not what they would do, because they have only a few people at a time. And I don't exactly know all the details. I heard last semester what they were trying to do. But yeah.
So are they allowing in-person lab?
They are for the nursing. I think for the probably nursing students that are almost finished, that are learning things like how to give an injection or, they have to learn things that you have to do on another person. They were only allowing, a certain number of people in at once. And then like all day long, people would have an appointment time to come in to do their lab. So it wasn't like they just opened the door and let the whole class come in. They've been very controlled in how they're doing it. But yeah, that may be why they want you guys to get vaccinated, because then they can train you up faster and, more fully and get you out in the field.
Vaccinated or what? The
nursing students, Noah was saying he heard that nursing schools were going to vaccinate their incoming class before nursing school
Do
started.
they have to pay for that, or it's like
I don't know. I don't know.
I heard the vaccine will be very expensive. So I'm not sure.
I hope not. That would
That's
that
not
wouldn't
good.
be very equitable. That would be terrible. Yeah. So, well, I say, not under our control. Well, okay, so I think I will see you guys on Thursday unless you need to come back. All right.
Okay, Professor, I have a question. In the announcement, you said comprehensive exam. I did not understand. What is that? Like the whole chapter you were giving?
No, that's the whole semester.
I mean, the whole semester. I mean,
Yeah. So if you look at the original course description,
yes,
it says the last midterm 4, which is on the digestive tract,
yes.
is 80 points, not 100. And 40 points is a comprehensive exam. That means that it tests the entire semester. So that's where I gave you guidance on how to study for it in that announcement.
Yeah, I see that. So the total is 120?
Yeah, when they add together, they'll be 120, but I think I may do them as 2 separate tests, which would mean that you could open either one. At least I've never tried it this way, so maybe I should try and see if it'll let me do that. But I was going to make 2 different quizzes. One's a comprehensive, one's the midterm. So then you could choose which you wanted to do first. That would be up to you as far as time management, and not, all one big long quiz, because
Both in the same day and the same one
day,
after another?
time, but you have 2 hours to do it, not 1.5.
The first set has only digestive and the second set has the comprehensive.
Right.
Okay. Okay. And the comprehensive is a long questions, or it's like a
writing question. I haven't written it yet, so I don't know.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Professor.
Thanks, Professor. Take care.
Bye, Sean.
And then
Bye.
the next time you will